Okay, we're starting on Tes Zayin. I'm in Bais. And if you're using the English, turn down one more page because we're going to start. We're going to start the second line right above the first line right above the widest lines. Starts with the word Ad. Ad Hechan Tachlas Yisurim. Where is the until where is, I don't know how they translate Tachlas, but the ultimate.
How far does the definition
ultimate
of
purpose,
ultimate
or goal.
How far does the definition of suffering?
How far away?
Right. The definition of suffering. How far does it extend? What is considered suffering? And the Gemara is going to explain. Good morning. The Gemara is going to explain that if someone doesn't suffer in this world, then he's using up his world to come. So Amar Rabbi Lazar. This is Rabbi Lazar from Pedas. 1 second, let's see. Kol she'arge le'beged lilbeish ve'ena miskabel alav. He has a garment woven for him, but it doesn't fit. So that's Yisurim. He has a garment woven for him, but it doesn't fit. When he tries it on, it doesn't fit.
At one point, is he trying this on?
After it's made.
Has nothing to do with death?
No. No, he bought, he had so, those days that you had to make a garment. You didn't, there wasn't a store that sold different ones. You had to get it made. So, Maskef LaRava, Rava says, 1 second, this is a Maskef LaRava Zeira. Vitem Reb Shmuel Bar Nachmani. Rava Zeira asked, or some say Reb Shmuel Bar Nachmani asked, Gedolim Mizu Amru. They've said even more than this, which means even less of a suffering is considered suffering. Even if he wanted his wine mixed with warm water, they mixed it with cold. Or b'tzainen, he wanted cold water, and they mixed it with warm water or hot water.
I have a shirt that doesn't fit in a drink that's hot. Because then I'll just make myself another one.
So ba'at amrit kuli, hi? And you're saying that you need to have, that what's considered suffering, clothing that doesn't fit? Like Yossi, like you're saying, if it's a drink, so you go make another one.
Right.
And we said that that's already considered suffering.
But
so if that's
sure, you can't. It's like it takes a much longer time to
right.
sew it in.
So why are you saying that suffering is only by the shirt or the garment that doesn't fit? It's even much less than that.
Like I know that once her sister was gonna return a pair of shoes, and she went there and she opened it. It was my pair of shoes. And then she gave it back.
The Gemara could have said that one.
That's more suffering than having a hot.
You see if the Gemara would have known your story. Mar Breder Ravina says, Afilu nepach lechaluka, even if you put it on and then you look at it and it's backwards, that's considered suffering. Why? Because you have to take it off and put it on again. Inside out or backwards. Rava v'iteimer Rav Chisda v'iteimer Rav Yitzchak v'amilav masnisatana. Rava, some say Rav Chisda, or it could be Rav Yitzchak, or some say that it was a Bais. There's a lot of options here who the source of this is. Afilu haishet yadi lakis little shalish. Puts his hand in his pocket to take 3 coins. And he pulls out 2 coins.
Seriously?
That's suffering. Why? Because you have to put your hand in again to get another one.
Come on.
That's already considered suffering. So if this happens to you, you don't have to be concerned that, oy vey, I'm using up my world to come in this world. You say, no, look, I'm suffering.
So it's good to make a mistake, in other words.
Dafka shalish. This is only if it happens when you pulled out 3 coins. That you intended to pull out 3 coins and you got only 2 coins. But let's say you wanted to take out 2 coins. And he ended up with 3 coins. That's not considered suffering. Why? Because you can just drop it. That's easy. But to put your hand again, that's harder. And that's considered suffering. You would have brought 3 coins and we would have practiced. Okay, yeah. See? So if you only get 2 coins, you see we needed 3 coins. We're suffering now. Okay. Kol kach lama. What is all of this about? What are we discussing here? Why are we saying this? It says, the Tanya, the Bei Rabbi Yishmael. It was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael. I'm sorry?
I said, here we go.
Yeah. Kol shavar lav arba'am yom b'la yisurim. If someone has 40 days without any suffering, then kibalai lamai. He's received his world to come.
How's that possible? Like, I don't even know. Like, that's kind of hard.
Yeah.
Figure out something else.
But Marav Amri in Eretz Yisrael, Marav is Eretz Yisrael because it's the west of Babylonia. They said, Haranos Mizda Meneslay, that the Haranos, some mishaps or punishment is getting prepared for him because he's getting all like they're letting him get away with no suffering. That means that something's going to happen. It's like
So why don't you, like, you realize tonight that you, like, hurt yourself or something?
Who's letting him?
heaven is letting him get away with things now because they're waiting for the big punishment to show up. The person should be concerned if everything is going well. This is the.
So that nowadays all the suffering and punishment already passed. We don't need to have any of this. The Rabbi said we already accomplished it through the Holocaust. It was a different previous generation.
Where is that written?
That the Rabbi said that?
Oh, the Rabbi said. It's better than writing.
He said that for our generation we don't have to suffer anymore. We already had all the sufferings taken care of for us.
They say a story
Big
with
stuff.
Reb Sadi going that
Because everything is done. We could see things in goodness.
his servant, Reb Sadi going, his servant went to Toivel dishes before Pesach, and a wave came and washed all the dishes into the ocean. So he didn't tell Reb Sadi going. He went back and they used the last year's dishes. Reb Sadi was very rich. The following year, he went to Toivel dishes, new dishes again before Pesach. And every time he put a dish into Toivel, he brought out two dishes. And it was one from last year that was coming back. So now he goes back to Reb Sadi Gaon and he tells him, and Reb Sadi Gaon says, Oy. And from then on, everything went bad. He lost all his money, he got sick, and everything. He was so sick that they needed 1 spoonful of chicken soup. They had to boil it up until there was only 1 spoon left, and they were going to serve it to him, and that would help him get back. He lost everything, and he was sick. So as they were getting the spoon into his mouth, a spider fell on him, on the spoon, and it spoiled it, it spilled. So Reb Sadi Gaon smiled. So, and then he started to get better. He says because when things get so good, very good, it can't get any better. When it gets worse, to the bottom, it can't get any worse. It has to get better. So, okay. Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol Aimer. See Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol? We don't always see that. Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol is Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. But here we have the full name, the way his the full title. Here it says Ilmalei, and the Shita Mikvetza switches it to Ilmalei with a Yud. Ilmalei means if only.
Yeah.
Ilmalei with an Aleph means if not so, if not for. Ilmalei means if it would. They're opposites. Ilmalei with an Aleph or Ilmalei with a Yud. That's, Tosfos explains it. Ilmalei is supposed to be with a Yud. If Ba Kadosh Baruch Hu Avram Yitzchak Yaakov Bedin. It means like even if Hashem would come to Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov in judgment, He won't be able to stand in front of the rebuke. Shenemar, as it says, Vates Yatzu V'Shafta Eschem Lefnei Hashem Es Kol Tzidkos Hashem Asher Asa Eschem Besaviseichem. This is the speech that Shmuel Hanavi gives the people after they ask for a king. He gives them a very powerful speech, and in that speech he tells them that if Hashem would come, now Hashem is going to judge you, everything that He did for you, and how grateful you are, and even what He did for your forefathers. And what the pasuk is saying here is that as much as great as they were, but for the kindness that Hashem showed them, you can never be able to be grateful enough. Zed Dar Darshav Mavakshe Panecha Yaakov Sela. This is a very interesting Gemara. It's a Gesund. This is the generation of those who seek Him, who seek your face of Yaakov, means the God of Yaakov, Sela, forever. Pligi bar Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya v'Rabbanan. This is a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya and the Rabbanan. you think about this historically, Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya would be the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, and we're dealing with a time when people were not so satisfied with the leadership. It's very hard to live up to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's greatness, and things are going down. Not everyone is as happy. So look at this Gemara. Hanasi was the greatest, right? So Chad Amar Dor Lefi Parnas. One of them says that the generation is at its level that follows the level of the leader.
The leader, exactly.
The Chad Amar, another one says Parnas Lefi Dairei.
So
That the leader.
We got what we deserve. No, really.
That's right. Parnas Lefi Dairei. No, it's the other way. The leader goes after. You can't complain about your leader. The leader's only at your level. If you would be greater, you would have a greater leader. Lamai Helchasa, what is this referring to? Eily Malamal Yusuf, it's talking about righteousness. Chasidus, Rashi says. Demar Savri Mali Dar Mali Parnas, that if the generation is very Chasidic, it means pious, so then the Parnas would also be at that high level. Umar Savri, another one holds Mali Parnas, that if the Parnas would be so pious, then Mali Dar, then the generation would be at that level. Says it's not so, because
The best person would be the leader.
Right, but the question is, here's the question. Tzidkiya, but we have the king Tzidkiya, the Havimali, like his name, he was righteous. Vidari la Havimali, but his generation was not. Yahayakim, and Yahayakim, which is the opposite. The la Havimali, he was bad. Vidari Havimali, but his generation was righteous. Dam Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, Mishum Reb Shimon ben Yochai, my Diksiv. He said, Rabbi Yochanan said the name of Reb Shimon ben Yochai. What's the meaning of the pasuk? Bereshis Mamlechas Yayakim, Melech Yehuda. It says, why does it use the word Bereshis? It means because HaKadosh Baruch Hu lahachzir sa'olam l'teiv avaya b'shvil Yayakim. That God wanted to destroy the world and start it again, just because Yayakim was so bad. But Kivitchin Stakel B'daynis Yash V'daiti. But he saw the generation. He said, "Oh, it's not so bad. I can hold on to this." Because Hakadosh Baruch Hu la'achzir sa'olam l'teiv avaya b'pnei der shel Tzidkiyahu. And God wanted to destroy the world because of the generation of Tzidkiyahu, not because of Tzidkiyahu, because of the generation. Kivitchin Stakel B'Tzidkiyahu Yash V'daiti. When he saw Tzidkiyahu, he was appeased. So he said, "I'm going to keep the world. I have a righteous person here." So what does it mean? Yeah, I don't know how that fits in. And maybe that's the explanation, that there always needs to be a certain amount of righteousness.
Of one person.
But here we're saying that it's only one.
So
So
to do with the whole thing.
I read that. I was
It's just one
funny, I
person.
read that.
It just says if there's one person righteous, then no, that isn't. There's one person bad.
uh-huh.
So it's more like the odds.
I don't know. So we have a problem, because how do you have? We said that it's corresponding to it, and here we're saying that we find generations where it doesn't match. We're talking about, the way Rashi translates it, is anger and calmness.
So it's not righteous.
This doesn't have to do with righteousness, and that we don't see from these correlations.
Rashi
There-
says that.
Rashi says kas, and who says nayach, where it says.
Say a good day that I can read the letter from the Rambam to his son.
Every day.
Translation.
Yeah, you can read it every day. Some people say it
Supposed
every
to read it every day.
Yeah, you see, we mentioned the anger.
Well, at least once a
Okay,
week.
Hadjan alach yesh berachem. We'll return to you this third parak. We have a new topic here. Apparently, it's said in the yeshivas that Masechtas Erachin has a little bit of every Masechta in Shas in it. It has a, if you notice, we'd have to go through it to actually see each Masechta, but we did have brachas. Remember with Halal we had. You have to look through. Hesed Yad B'Neider. Hesed Yad means the means, the ability to pay, the commitment, the pledge that a person makes. It says over here, b'noider, means someone that takes a vow. The Gemara is going to explain that it actually is referring to Erachin. Because by Erachin, someone pledges someone's value based on his age, and uses the term Erech. So if he can't afford that, we follow the person that pledged, not the person's age. So in other words, if someone pledges the value of a wealthy person, but he is not wealthy, he doesn't need to pay it because he can't afford it. And you don't look at the person that he pledged. V'hashana b'nider. However, how much is the pledge initially? That's based on the person's age. Whose age? The one that he pledged, not the one that's pledging. So the noider and the nider. The noider is the subject, and the nider is the object. Right? Is the one that's being pledged. But Erachin, when it comes to Erachin, who do I follow? This is referring to, I guess, if it's a man or a woman. B'nerach, because there's a different price. I follow the one that's the object, the one that's being pledged. V'ha'erech bizman ha'erech. And I also have to follow at the time when the person pledged, bizman ha'erech, when the person did that initial pledge. Now we go back and we explain.
The same thing as Vashanim Benida?
Vashanim Benida should be Va'erchen Benerach, right? It's the same thing, right? Unless it's the male-female aspect. One is the years and one is the male-female. Hesed Yad B'Noider Ketzad. How is this Hesed Yad B'Noider? That means the ability, the bracket, how much he can afford. It goes after the one that's pledging. How is this? It says, Ani sheherach esa asher. Let's see, there's a poor fellow. We're 3 lines into the Mishnah. There's a poor fellow that pledges the value of a rich person. He only has to pay what he can afford. V'asher sheherach esa ani. If I remember, we said it was machlekes for Mei and Chachamim. If he pays 1 or 50. Or anything in the middle. The mayor said it's either 1 or 50. The Chum said it's anything in the middle based on his value.
Rabbi stands for what?
Usually in the Mishnah it says Rabbi, it's Rabbi Huda Nasi. Okay, wait 1 minute though before we get there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It seems like the Gemara has switched its usage of terms because we have Mishnahs at the beginning that says Arak is a fixed amount, so you wouldn't care about this discussion if this person who pledged on is rich. If he's 20 to 60, he's X
Right.
amount, period.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's treating Arak as if it's a netter, right?
Actually,
So I'm
there's
confused.
one more law by Erachin. First of all, it follows the age, 20 to 60 and all of that, but there is one more law. That other law is Kfi Asher Tasig Yad HaNoider. That even though he pledged 50 because the person was in between 20 and 60, but when he can't afford it, we only take from him what he can afford.
Yeah, but that's looking at the pledgor, not the
Pledger. Yeah, we are looking at the pledger. Yeah, so for Hesed Yad B'Noider, right, we're going back to the very first piece, that we're following the one that the pledger, the one that took the pledge, that took the vow. So he was a poor person, and he pledged the value of a rich person. Nice and erachani. He only has to pay for a poor person, which is what he can afford. Even though what he owed is 50 coins, because we followed the other fellow's age. Right? Here. This is the guy. See how religious he is? He's wearing tefillin. He wants to give a donation. And this is the person that's being pledged. Okay? So this guy happens to be, he's 35 years old. He's it's 50 coins. So this religious fellow wants to give a big donation. he pledges his. So there's two halachas here. The first is that he has to pay his age, not his age. Second halach is that if he happens to be very poor, see, it's a tzedakah box. Yeah, if he happens to be very poor, so then he only has to give what he can afford. It doesn't have to do with what he can afford, just what he can afford. In the opposite.
Can he give more than 50 coins?
Well, this guy isn't really involved. He may not even know that this person is pledging his value. Right at this point. Let's say it's the opposite. Let's say this guy is very rich. You see, it's full of coins. It's very rich. So, and he evaluates, he says he's pledging the poor persons. So, nice and erech.
Well, it doesn't matter whether he's poor or not. It's just 50. It
Doesn't matter. Nice and erech he has to give because he's the wealthy one. This is chicory in this case. It's not coffee. It's the poor man's drink. Okay, aval bekarbanas. That's not true. Aval bekarbanas. When it comes to sacrifices, Menachem. It's different by sacrifices. Look at the case. Harisha amar karbani shel mitzayra ze'alai. Let's say there's a mitzayra, a leper that's walking around. He has to be outside the camp, but walking around outside the camp, and someone sees him and says, "I'm going to pledge that person's sacrifices." So haya mitzayra ani. Let's say the mitzayra was a poor person, maybe karbanani. See, we don't look at the person that saw him and is pledging. He could be the fabulously wealthy, but he only has to give the karbanas of the mitzayra, not his own. It's the opposite. Asher, maybe karban asher. If the mitzayra is wealthy, so then he has to give the wealthy the expensive karbanas, even if he was poor, the person that pledged it. Rabbi says, I say, af be'erchen came. That the truth is by erchen it's exactly the same. You didn't compare it exactly. If you match up all the variables, you'll see that erchen is exactly the same like the mitzayra. Why? Why, if a poor person evaluates a wealthy person, he only has to pay. Remember, this was the poor guy. He only has to pay what he can afford. Because the wealthy guy wasn't chayav anything. He doesn't even know what's happening here. But let's say this fellow is wealthy. He says, I'm going to pledge my value, which is he's 35, he has to pay 50 coins, and when it comes to paying, he actually has to pay all 50 because he can afford it. This guy hears him saying that. He says, what the wealthy man said, I'm accepting on myself. So he has to give the wealthy man's pledge. So Rabbi is saying that's similar to the sacrifice, because by the sacrifice, that sacrifice was an obligation on the mitzayra. So because it was an obligation on the mitzayra, you said you're going to give that, you have to give what the mitzayra was supposed to give. By Erachin, you ignore the person because the person that's being pledged, because he wasn't giving anything. So Rabbi says if you match it up properly, Erachin and Karbanos are the same. The Gemara initially discusses the language. The term that we used at the beginning of the Mishnah was Heseg Yad B'Neider. The problem is we should have said Heseg Yad B'Marech, because it's not a din in Nedarim, it's a din in Erachin. The Gemara asks immediately, Heseg Yad B'Marechu. Heseg Yad, this law of what a person can afford, that goes in Erachin. The answer is K'diksiv Hashetaseg Yad Ha'Neider Yarichenu Akayin. In the pasuk, it uses the word Neider. And so therefore, the Mishnah also used that word. So it's using the language of the pasuk, but in our language, we would call it Erech, the Marech. Now, when it says Vashanim b'Nider, the years are in the Nider. Nider is the one that's being pledged, the object. The Gemara asks B'Nerachu. That was something that's associated with the one that's being pledged in Erachin. The Gemara says, "Aidi damer Heseg Yad B'Neider, Menami Hashanim b'Nider." I wanted to make it symmetrical. And you started off with the Lashon HaPasuk, so we said the next case also, in the contrast was also the Lashon HaPasuk. Now the Gemara says, Heseg Yad B'Neider Ketzad. When we said what a person can afford, how is this? excuse me, ani sherech es asher neis nerachani. If a poor person pledges the value of a rich person, he only has to give what he can afford. My time, what's the reason for that? The Amar Kra, the pasuk says, asher tasig yad hanaider. What the one who pledges can afford, the ability of the one that pledges. B'noider tala rachmana. It's the merciful one made it dependent on the one that pledges. Aval b'karbanis einakein. But when it comes to sacrifices, it's different. Harisha merkarbanis shel mitzayir ze'alai. If someone says, this mitzayir sacrifices are upon me, so hayim mitzayir ani, maybe karbanani. If the mitzayir was poor, then the person that pledged it brings a poor man's mitzayir. Afal gav de madira yasher. Even though the one that pledged it was wealthy. The Gemara says, V'imdalhu amar Rachmana, v'loidalhu. It says if he is poor, this person's not poor. So we have to read, V'afal gav de madira yasher, and even if, I should have read that as a question. V'yafal gav de madira yasher, and even if the person that's pledging is wealthy, v'imdalhu, only if he's poor, should he give a poor. Amar Rachmana, Hashem says, v'loidalhu is not poor. So Amar Rabbi Yitzchak switches this a drop, and he says, K'shehaya madirei ani. We're talking about that the person that's taking this vow to give the sacrifice of the Mitzvah is poor as well. V'dilma oleh didei chas rachmana. Maybe we should have answered differently. Maybe it's only up to what the merciful one, Hashem's compassion was on the Mitzvah, not on someone else that's pledging. Amadire loy, but not on the one that's pledging. The haksiv who, because it says v'imdal who is specific him, only the Mitzvah. Amar Ravada Barava says ve'in yadai maseges, and he doesn't have the ability. His hand doesn't reach. The Rabbi says a noider. It's coming to include the noider, that by the carbon of the noider, when he's poor, he doesn't have to give a wealthy man's mitzayra. The Gemara says Ava Madira Yasher. But let's say the man that's pledging is wealthy. Hachinami demaisi bashiris. The mitzayra is poor. The one that's pledging was poor. He brings a poor man's carbon. That's what we learn. What happens if the one that's pledging is wealthy? From what we just said, the imdalhu, that leniency is only on the mitzayra, but the one that's pledging happens to be wealthy. There is no leniency here. He should be compelled to bring a rich man's carbon. Imkain mayavel carbonais aveinikain. If the one that's pledging the sacrifices of the mitzvah has to bring, he's wealthy, and he has to bring a rich man's carbon, then it's exactly like Erachin. So why did the Mishnah say aval b'm karbanas einakein? Look, we said that this that if he's poor or rich, we know that that's referring to the mitzvah himself. Now we're saying that it's also referring to the one that's pledging. So then that's Erachin.
What's a literal translation of it?
Erachin is, literal translation means estimated value.
Oh, because
But-
you were saying it again, I was not sure.
But what it refers to here is when someone has to pay to the temple based on someone's age. He says, I want to give so-and-so's value. So if that person is between 5 and 20, he pays a certain amount. If it's between 20 and 60, a certain amount. So what does it mean, Aval b'karbanas einakein, if it's exactly the same? So the Gemara explains that we have two psukim here. Choda amatzera ani, madirei ani. One of them tells me that if the mitzvah is poor and the one that's pledging is poor, that he brings a poor man's sacrifice. V'chada, and another one, they take out the word lamute, but mitzayra asher umadirei ani. If the mitzayra is rich, however, the one that's pledging is poor, what happens in that case? That's an interesting case. Salkadait chamina. So here we say, I don't know. Feels bad for him. But sometimes the poor guy wants to give the rich guy a gift. Maybe he's going to get more back. So you were kind to me when I was Sal kedait chamina. And why do I need these two psukim? Because here what we're saying is by the mitzayra asher madirei ani that he has to give a rich man's korban. Sal kedait chamina. I could have thought Hail this Rabbi is Rabbi. This two pshat min Rashi. That I could have thought that it's exactly the same. If the when do we say that he has to give a poor man's? How do you have it written in yours? Let me take a look.